Did you see that conjoined twins Abby and Brittany Hensel got married recently?
What? How does that work?
Well, technically, I guess only one of them got married.
So only one of them got married?
Only one.
So you're saying that half of them is single?
I suppose half of them is single.
I hope it's a hot one.
I want to approach this scientifically and respectfully because I know if given your way how this whole conversation would go. But I have questions, and I think the viewer out there has questions as well, and I thought it would be fun to talk about them here on the podcast.
Yeah, I gotta say though, I'm a little offended. When have I ever been anything less than respectful? Well, just name even one time. There's a lot of jobs that you could get as a child molester. One girl's face was just half torn off. She came running up to me for help, but I didn't want to get blood on my shirt, so I pushed her down, put a grenade up their ass, and have them crawl into a foxhole.
Now you've gone too far once again.
You pull their butt cheeks right into your tongue.
You're right, I can't think of a single instance.
Exactly. So your fears were unwarranted.
And I apologize sincerely.
Now, why do you think these things are still walking around alive?
Before we get into it, I want to explain how the anatomy works, or at least to my understanding how it works. So, obviously there's two heads, which means there are two brains. They're two independent individual people, not independent. They're two people. They have two hearts. They each control the arm, only the arm on their corresponding side. They have two stomachs, and everything below the waist is shared. It's combined. So everything above the waist is, for the most part, individual. Everything below is shared.
Wait, everything below is shared?
Everything below the waist, they only have one of.
If I'm getting this correctly, that they share a vagina?
They share one vagina.
Interesting. Wouldn't that make them conjoined twins? This is all very confusing. Do you by chance have a photo of these two?
I come prepared, so I do indeed have a photo of these two. Let me see. There you go. There is the happily married couple.
Like Zoink Scoob! I'm sorry.
Again, I want to be very respectful. These are private individuals.
Of course, of course.
Thank you.
May the power of Christ compel you. May the power of Christ compel you. I'm just making sure.
Making sure of what?
Huh? That they're not gonna inhabit my body somehow.
Although in your current condition, they could probably both inhabit your body.
You know what? That's disrespectful right there.
To who?
They.
So obviously they do have sex because let's face it, you're not marrying anyone without having sex, and you're not saying you're going to love them forever unless the sex is at least decent, right?
Yeah.
So they're fucking.
Oh, they're absolutely fucking. A lot of questions arise, though, from this whole kind of situation they're in. For instance, if he wants to have sex with his wife, the half that he married, do they have to get consent from the other half when they want to have sex?
For sure. I would assume that this is something that needed to be talked about at great length ahead of time, because even when they were dating, this scenario must have come up, right?
I would imagine so, yeah. What if the non-married half is in the mood and they don't ever feel like it?
I would say that's not the case because, again, they got married. So there's clearly some type of system or understanding that happened and is now in place for just that type of scenario. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten as far as to get married.
That's true, I guess. It's also very, very confusing.
Like, who gets the vagina on which day of the week?
Yeah, much like a kid borrowing the car. Like, who gets the keys for the vagina on the weekends? Things like that.
Right. Is there a schedule? Is there a calendar on the wall? You have to take a marker and pencil your name in? I don't know why you would use a marker to pencil your name in, but...
Okay, who wants to taste it and who wants to smell it?
And what about oral sex? Do you think that Abby gives her husband oral pleasure?
Oh, 100%. This is the way I see it going down. No pun intended. I see that Abby's going down on the husband, and in like one of those Pornhub stepmom, stepdaughter videos.
Yeah, sure.
Brittany is kind of egging on Abby, dirty talking and being like, look at you, filthy little whore, what you're doing.
Sure, she's participating.
Yeah, I was going to say she was going to grab her head, but that's impossible.
Right. Now, realistically, though, think about that. So their heads are right next to each other, right? So here's Abby. I'm Brittany in this scenario, and Abby is giving her husband a beach. You can't not see that. This is happening right next to your head, right? So does she actually get involved?
Here's something else to think about. So when he tries to come in his wife Abby's face, there's no way that Brittany's not getting a little bit of ricochet from that cum shot in her face.
Right. Good point.
Yeah.
Although, now that I think about it, I'm going to say she doesn't participate, as evidenced by the fact that he only married one of them, right? Because if they were both in on that action, let's face it, he's going to marry both of them, right?
I did do a little research, and one of the questions I had was, how did this guy, Josh, choose between Abby and Brittany? Well, it turns out that he chose Abby because apparently she loves to give blowjobs, and her nickname was Downtown Abby.
That was good. Downtown Abby.
That's what I'm saying.
Well done, sir.
And what happens if Brittany wants to get married now?
Right, or even date.
Yeah. Like, what the hell?
How does that work? Now, let's think about this logically and numerically. Abby is married to, again, I think his name is Josh, and Brittany meets someone and wants to date them and at some point be intimate with that man or woman. How does the consent work for sharing the vagina?
Yeah, because if you're Abby's husband, but he knows that Brittany is using his wife's vagina to get laid with,
right?
Isn't that technically cheating?
I don't know.
We need to call the FBI on these two, or these one.
Let's take it one step further. What if it turns out Brittany's a rabid whore?
I never thought of that.
Right? And she's just looking for all kinds of dick.
Yeah.
What about even masturbating? Let's say Brittany is asleep and Abby's feeling in the mood, but the husband is nowhere to be seen. He travels for business, whatever the case is, and she wants to pleasure herself. Abby starts to do so. Brittany is clearly going to wake up, right? But also, they each have control of the corresponding arm. So if Brittany is sleeping and Abby touches the vagina to Brittany, it's going to feel like a stranger is touching her because they don't share sensation across their hands. But even just think about using utensils to eat a meal. One of them is using the fork and the other one is using the knife.
Yeah.
But that's two different brains doing that.
So I'm going to imagine that it must work somewhat like one of those Jaegers from that movie Pacific Rim.
Right.
Where, you know, there's people inside the Jaeger.
They have to work together in perfect sync.
Yes, exactly. And attack other monsters that are...
They're not monsters.
Did I say they were?
You just said and attack other monsters.
Yes, other monsters, not me.
I see. They're actually, you saw that special, right?
Yes.
They're very sweet. They're very normal too. They conduct themselves very normally. Must be tough. You just want to, when you're a child, they're not anymore, but when you're a child, you just want to be a child.
Yeah.
We haven't even discussed the legal challenges here. So here is a completely absurd, hypothetical situation. Hear me out. Let's say Brittany goes crazy and goes on a murderous rampage and starts stabbing people. And Abby tries to stop her because, again, two separate arms, right? but she is not as powerful as Brittany, and she can't keep Brittany from killing people. So Brittany is a murderer, but Abby tried to stop her. How do you sentence somebody like that in that situation?
Also, here's another one you didn't think about. If somebody looks directly into their eyes and they turn them to stone, is that considered murder?
They are not a Gorgon.
Excuse me?
They are not a Gorgon.
Not a Gorgon. Okay. Just write that down, buddy. Not a Gorgon?
Not a Gorgon.
Okay. Right. Not a mythological
They are
creature.
not a mythological snake-headed creature that turns people to stone with
You
their
see,
gaze.
I'm very surprised at that. Okay.
And finally, I guess, would be the ultimate question, and probably one that they have discussed themselves. Like everyone else, they're going to get old, and someday one of them is going to die first. What happens in that situation?
Great question. I mean, it's going to be a real pain in the ass for one of them to have to carry around a casket attached to him.
Half a casket?
Yeah. So before we wrap this segment up, I do have a few other questions.
Proceed.
Do you think they live in fear that they may eventually run into Kurt Russell?
Kurt Russell?
Yeah.
What does he have to do with anything?
Oh, nothing. I don't know. One of them becomes a raging alcoholic and they have to go to a 12-step program. Does that mean each one of them gets 6 steps to go through?
No, I think they have 24 steps.
Oh my God. It's crazy. If one of them sneezes, do they both blink? These are questions I have.
What if it turns out one of them is transgender and they want to transition?
Holy God. Would mean they'd just be walking around with half a pussy. I do have another question, and I want you to answer me honestly on this one. Don't give me some kind of one of your nice answers. I want to hear what you really think about this. You're out doing gardening work in your backyard with a rake. You finish up for the day, you go to the shed, putting the rake back, you open the door, and that's inside there, and it startles you. What do?
I flee in abject terror. What do you mean?
Damn it, I wish we had got that.